I'm with Mac. He's a metal sculptor. And how did you find lava?
Well, I sort of stumbled onto lava. I didn't know anything about them. I was at a show that I found on my own last month. It was the Artists for a Better World at Celebrity Center. And through the course of the day, I met Esperanza and gave her my card. And she contacted me, and I then went to the meeting that they had last week. And I'm really starting to feel like I'm very glad I did, because I can kind of get the sense that where I'm going with my art and what lava is doing, I think that the pathways might really, go well together. So I'm kind of learning this, but as we go, as we speak. But that's how I just stumbled on. It literally fell into my lap. There's maybe a little more to that too, and that's in the sense that I've had some personal gains, I guess, recently that of maybe what you would term as a spiritual nature, and as a result, my reach with regard to my art has just sailed up the flagpole, and as a result, I did the show with the Artists for a Better World, and I got other contacts at that show, and finding myself all of a sudden extremely busy with regard to my art, and lava is starting to become part of that, and I count myself very fortunate all of a sudden.
That is great, actually, that your art is starting to get out there. People are starting to know it, so that says a lot about what art can do, but also you as an artist. I know you classify yourself as a metal sculptor. When did you start playing around with metals, and how did you come to be a metal sculptor? If you really want, to be, in all honesty, the earliest point, I think, would have been when I was in 8th grade. I was playing around with, of all things, some copper wire that I had, and I made a peace symbol. And there was something about it that I liked, and I was kind of inspired, but then I never really did anything with that, and that was 8th grade. And then when I got into high school, I was interested in just all art, and I took 3 classes that really furthered me in art. One was ceramics, one was printmaking, silk screening, wood cuts and linoleum cuts and that sort of thing, and then also jewelry making. And I was actually more centered around ceramics. After high school, I bought my own potter's wheel. Set up a little studio in my basement, and proceeded to go absolutely nowhere with it. And that's when I lived in Colorado, and I even moved out here, and I brought the potter's wheel with me, and I still never went anywhere with it. Sold it just before my daughter was born. But I'd always wanted to get back into jewelry, and then about 7 years ago, I bought some tools that would lend themselves to doing various tasks that you could do with jewelry, and I started polishing some of my old high school projects from jewelry class. And I bought some more tools, and I started messing around, and I started soldering pieces together, and pretty soon I said, to heck with jewelry. I really don't care about jewelry, but I liked free forms, and I liked making shapes and doing different things with it. So I just kept on making things. They started out small, about that big, and then all of a sudden they're 2 inches high, and then I'm making fabricated pieces that are this high or this high. And do you think they're going to continue to grow?
That possibly. This range of height and size right here is I'm comfortable with. It's also good within the tool range that I have. There's certain limitations that you'll bump into, and I don't always have the money to get the tools that I would need to go bigger, and I'm not it's not an obstacle to have to go bigger. You know, I'm happy with the range that I'm in.
And you said you started with jewelry, and you actually worked on trying to make some jewelry, right?
Yeah.
And that didn't really work out so well to you. When did you actually go to making these kind of sculptures?
Well, actually what it was I had pulled out some of my old jewelry projects. I had a couple of necklaces and a couple of rings that I made actually in high school that have been sitting in my desk ever since. And I started polishing them, and I was looking them over, and because this was on the idea that I'd like to get back into jewelry. And then I wondered one day, well, what would it be like if I took a stack of coins and sanded them smooth and soldered them together and made a cone? So I did that. You know, I'm kind of just not really thinking about jewelry. And then I had some pieces of brass and some copper, and I made alternating brass and copper stacked together, cut into a shape, and soldered all together. And then I formed it more, and I got into polishing and stuff like that. And it was along that line that I just realized, well, you know what, it's ridiculous to say I'm getting back into jewelry, because I'm not, and I really don't care about jewelry. You know, the sky is wide open, I mean, with sculpture. And so I started terming myself instead as a miniature metal sculptor.
As an artist, have you gone through any obstacles, or what have been some of the challenges since you've become a metal sculptor artist?
Well, I think the biggest dilemma or obstacle for me is I have realized such a huge passion and desire to do this that I want to do it all the time. The reality is I, you know, have to contribute to the rent with my wife and the bills and the food, and we also support our daughter. And so I have to have a job. I mean, I'm selling work, but there's still a bit of a gap. I mean, my overhead in terms of material and supply is actually quite low, because I recycle my metals. But the time and effort that it takes to create a piece, and yet I'm spending so much of my time at work. And, you know, I'm a printer, and I enjoy that. I've been a printer, you know, ever since I was a puppy, and you know, I'm good at it, but I'm ready to kind of segue into what I would prefer to do, which is this. And so I think obstacle-wise, it's how do I live with a job and try to be happy, and because this is what I want to do, you know. So I do get to work on my art, you know, on the weekends. I'm you know, my wife and I both get up very early. She's also an artist. On Saturday and Sunday, you know, 4 o'clock in the morning, and I go to the garage, she goes to the computer room, and we're working away. We meet up at the coffee pot and exchange smiles, but so I really cherish this time that I have on the weekends to work on my stuff. Usually during the week, the other obstacle is I get home and I'm exhausted, and it's difficult to get very much done, or focus on it. So that's, I think, the biggest struggle and obstacle that I have is I'm just not at the point yet or place yet where I can drop everything else and just do this, you know, and that would sure be nice.
How much time does it take to build one of these sculptures? About? Well,
it really varies wildly. This piece is a commissioned piece that I did. The branch and leaf and stem structure I did in less than a day, but the addition of the bird, which has quite a bit of detail and a lot of intricate soldering, that added another 3 weeks. We're talking, when I say 3 weeks, I'm talking about, you know, 2 days on a weekend. And the base, you know, a day. I knocked that out in, well, less than a day. This piece here I did from start to finish in 1 day. last Saturday. And then working out this piece I call Splash. The splasher on the bottom I worked on for weeks, believe it or not. It doesn't look like that much, but I think a lot of it was sort of indecision on how I was going to, how far I was going to take it. And so that's a lot of times what will add a lot of time into something is me going through the thought process and figuring out how long, you know, or how to do something or how I want it to look. Some things will go really quite quickly, even though they look like they may have taken a lot longer. So it's funny. I have one piece that I worked on for 9 months. Unfortunately, I don't have it with me here today, but I literally worked on it for at least 9 months.
Well, thank you for sitting down with us and sharing your story and your insights into metal sculpting.